You've never heard of the most popular player in women's tennis. The AUS Open didn't realize how many fans she had. Scheduling is a tricky business for tournament organizers given the competing demands of international broadcasters keen to showcase the best in prime time for their markets. But the Australian Open struck a snafu on Monday with their decision to schedule trailblazing Filipino Alexandra Ila on Court 6, which is Melbourne Park's designated party court. UFC 325, Volkanovski vs. Lopez 2, Sunday, February 1, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. For the first time in his storied career, UFC featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski will defend his championship in his home city of Sydney, in a rematch with Brazil's Diego Lopes. Order now with main event on KO Sports. The most recent census said there were 58,935 people born in the Philippines living in Melbourne, and it felt like every single one of them was packed around the court's perimeter or squeezed into the narrow pathways surrounding it. Ila may be the biggest tennis talent Australians have never heard of, but the tennis world is well aware of her drawing power. And AO officials should have known this. Just last week, respected Australian tennis administrator Peter Johnston told foxsports.com.au that when she was playing a tournament in Hong Kong that he is the tournament director for, there were massive entry queues at the Victoria Park precinct. She is a huge draw and a breakout star. When she was playing in Hong Kong in October, we had queues of more than 100 meters long from local Filipinos want to see her, Johnston, who served as the AO deputy tournament director earlier this century, said. The queues were even bigger at Melbourne Park as fans clamored to get a glimpse of the world number 49 who upset six-time major star Iga Swiatek in the Miami Open last year. Such was the demand, fans were told not to even bother, with extra security around a court carrying an electric atmosphere throughout her clash with Alicia Parks. They were not exactly your typical tennis fans either, madly cheering when Parks produced an unforced error in the very first game of the match, which is against the unwritten rules of tennis fandom. Ila, an aggressive shotmaker, is not quite the finished product and can be erratic. But it is indisputable she sits among the world's biggest stars when it comes to metrics. The Australian Open's own YouTube account demonstrates this, with their posting of Ila's pre-tournament press conference drawing significantly more views than that of two-time champion Aryna Sabalenka, a staggering 171,000 to 8,000. So strong is her profile at home, the WTA has scheduled a tournament in Manila later this month to capitalize on her profile, one she will now be likely to feature in. The fact it was scheduled during the second week of the Open suggests tournament organizers weren't expecting her to make a deep Grand Slam run. Genuinely wondering if Alex Ila is already the most popular player in women's tennis right now? U.S. tennis writer Ben Rothenberg tweeted, "It would be hard to argue any player had a more passionate fan base on site on Monday, certainly. Despite losing 0-6-6 to 3-6 to 2, Ila spent a solid 10 to 15 minutes post-match signing autographs for her fans." You've never heard of the most popular player in women's tennis? The Australian Open didn't realize how many fans she had. You've never heard of the most popular player in women's tennis? That sentence sounds like a mistake, the kind editors circle in red. Popularity, after all, is meant to be loud. It comes with endorsements, primetime matches, center court scheduling, and a Wikipedia page that reads like a trophy cabinet. Yet this player exists mostly in the margins, in the stands, in group chats, in the pauses between points when the camera cuts away. She is not famous in the way the sport measures fame. She is famous in the way people measure belonging. At the Australian Open, they learned this by accident. On paper, her first-round match was ordinary. No headline billing, no night session, no grand predictions. Her name sat modestly in the draw, easy to skim past. The kind of name commentators mispronounce once and then shorten to a first name, just to be safe. But something strange happened on the walk from the practice courts. People stopped. Not the casual glances players are used to, but actual stops. Phones lifted. Smiles broke out like recognition of an old friend rather than a celebrity. A chant started, softly at first, then louder, until it became unmistakable. Security looked around, confused, as if a superstar had slipped through the gates unnoticed. She waved, embarrassed, half laughing. This wasn't new to her. It was just new to them. Inside the stadium, the crowd filled faster than expected. Ushers checked seat numbers twice. The broadcast team scrambled for context. Social media managers searched their archives. The cameras panned the audience and found signs that hadn't been printed overnight, flags that didn't belong to sponsors, faces painted with initials that didn't yet sell merchandise. The Australian Open didn't realize how many fans she had because her fans don't behave like fans are supposed to. They don't wait for permission. She didn't come up through the sport the right way. No perfectly narrated junior career, no early coronation as the next big thing. Her rise was uneven, interrupted, sometimes invisible. Injuries, losses, ranking drops that looked permanent from the outside. She spent years playing on courts without television coverage, matches you could only follow through half-updated scorelines and shaky live streams. That's where her popularity grew. In those spaces she talked back. Not in press conferences, but online, honestly, awkwardly, generously. She posted training sessions that went badly. She joked about jet lag, bad coffee, worse hotel rooms. She admitted fear before big matches and disappointment after small ones. She made the sport human again, one unpolished post at a time. Fans didn't admire her from a distance. They grew alongside her. So when she walked onto court at Melbourne Park, it wasn't just applause. It was recognition. This was someone they had watched lose, learn, rebuild. Someone who hadn't been protected by hype or insulated by myth. Someone whose career felt shared. The match itself was tense, messy, compelling. She fought for every point, not with theatrical intensity, but with stubborn persistence. She chased balls she had no business reaching. She smiled at her box after double faults and shrugged at missed opportunities. When she won a long rally, the roar was disproportionate, like a final had been decided. The commentators struggled to explain it. "She's clearly a crowd favorite," one said, the phrase carrying more confusion than certainty. But favorites usually come with a story the sport has already told you. This one had been told quietly, thousands of times, on timelines and forums and late-night streams. The Australian Open hadn't realized how many fans she had because the tournament wasn't where her story lived. It lived everywhere else. By the second set, the crowd noise was undeniable. The camera caught celebrities who hadn't planned on staying. Other players peeked out from the tunnel, curious. Tournament officials exchanged looks that said, "Did we miss something?" They missed the way modern popularity works.